And on the topic of, you know, the mimetic desires, the pre-packaged this and, you know, pre-thought through that, it brings in the way that we're wired. And I gain a lot of insight from Simon Sinek's book. I think it's Leaders Eat Last. He talks about this. He does a really great job at breaking it down. Then I looked into it some more on my own. I think Harvard had a study at some point that they broke down each of these reward chemicals in our brains. And so, for those of you who don't know, there's a really easy way to remember the four major ones, the reward chemicals in our brain, in the acronym DOSE. You got D for dopamine, which everybody knows about. That's the only chemical that people talk about, and I understand why. It's the one that's, you know, the reward chemical. It's probably even accurate to say it's the most active within our brains. And O is for oxytocin, which is the connection chemical. So if I'm, you know, say a new mother who just bore a child, that is the greatest known moment of human releasing oxytocin. What's interesting about oxytocin, this bonding chemical, as Simon puts it, is that we don't know hardly at all how it works within men, which is interesting. I mean, women, we know quite well how it works and how it doesn't work within women, but within men, there's this physicality that's just not quite happening for research to be thoroughly conducted. And then you got serotonin, which is the leadership chemical, which, you know, when as he describes it, when you're walking across the stage during graduation, you have accomplished this thing, right? And so you are getting this rush of excitement, of proudness, and so are your family who's in the audience, those who have helped you get to this point. And then you got endorphins, which people also know pretty well if you know, listen to training podcasts or other things, that is the pain reliever. It is simply there to coat over whatever pain that, you know, is there. So then I think like a good side touch here is cortisol is also worth noting, especially in today's day and age, because it's a lot more nefarious. It's under the radar. You don't necessarily know that it's there because we have such civilized society. If we were, you know, in the midst of hand-on-hand combat, you would notice your cortisol levels. But when you are, you know, have a case of the Tuesdays, stressing out because you can't figure out, like, this, you know, just you're just stressing over the project you have due this week, or, you know, the test that's coming up, or whatever it is, that's a subtle, slow drip of cortisol. And so all these things, these, you know, the dose chemicals, these reward chemicals, and then also your cortisol levels play into how people make algorithms.
Right, and so it's not only the physical activities that we engage in that are, you know, important in terms of all these chemicals that we're talking about, but it's actually your physical health. Mm-hmm. When you are more sedentary, mm-hmm. you know, you are going to be more subject to cortisol. You're going to be when you gain weight, you're going to have, for men, you're going to have less testosterone, mm-hmm. and more estrogen. I believe, I know at least less testosterone, mm-hmm. and so you're going to have consequences from there. And, you know, I would say that if you look at those effects of being sedentary, it makes complete sense that we're having the agitation and the anxiety of people who are just behind screens, mm-hmm. honestly, for the vast majority of the week.
Right.
You know, and they're not doing anything. They're not getting out and exercising and breathing and causing their bodies to do naturally what they should do. It's interesting that you bring up, you know, the issue of drugs and body chemicals. You know, we have far more chemicals in our body that we can produce that would exceed, you know, heroin and the effects of heroin,
yeah, right.
and cocaine.
Right.
Like, we can actually naturally, physically produce far greater effects, mm-hmm. in our bodies than just taking a hit of heroin or whatever it is that you do.
Yeah, psychedelics and other things like that.
And so what happens is we have all these alternative, unnatural sources of chemicals, and then you create an addictive society that doesn't have the physical advantages of the activities that would naturally cause your bodies to produce those.
Right.
It is a vicious cycle in so many different ways, and there's intertwining rings that are cycling around each other as well.